Welcome back to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast to continue on with the show and the second segment. Potential big changes coming to the NFL offseason in 2025. The NFLPA is in the midst of finishing a formal proposal to completely change the structure of the NFL offseason, potentially starting as soon as next offseason in 2025. It is sort of still in an informal phase right now. It is all sort of gathering together, and the NFLPA is gathering a lot of structure and how they want to present this to the NFL. So nothing too concrete as of yet, but the NFL media reports that a formal proposal could come as early as some point in this summer. So keep an eye out for that. But at this moment, there has been already some, leaked information, some reported news on what potential changes could be coming to the NFL in the offseason in regards to OTAs, training camp, the start of everything, and maybe some time off and getting rid of some stuff completely as well. So as a reminder, I wanted to bring you guys, some sort of context, some sort of background on how the NFL offseason is sort of set up now, if you were unaware. This is where we stand right now in terms of the structure of the current offseason. All teams are allowed to begin their workouts starting in April. Then at that point, it's still just mainly conditioning, just strength and conditioning tests, like I mentioned. And you're not really working with the whole team, doing team drills, going over concepts and stuff like that. You're just really working out, doing some positional drills, and you're just sticking to that main group of guys in April. Then it gets ramped up a little bit, not for everybody, but for the rookies in rookie minicamp. They join their teams, or they just join the rookies to have that sort of leg up, if you would, earlier in the season before more people start coming in to join them as a whole team later on. But rookie minicamp starts in May. Then you have the voluntary OTAs, which is where we find ourselves right now. Those are as well starting in late May to early June. Many teams conduct a mandatory minicamp as well at the start of June. So how those teams do it, it all just really depends on the situation and how coaches decide to structure that. But usually most teams have that mandatory minicamp for a short period of time at the start of June. And then lastly, once the first 2 weeks of June get by and everybody completely stops, you have that 6 to 6.5, 5 week period where nothing really happens in terms of team practices. Everybody goes their separate ways, continues their trainings most likely, and then they all regroup together in the middle to the late part of July for training camp before they eventually get into preseason and before they get into the start of the regular season as well. But now we get into sort of the changes a little bit here with what the NFLPA is trying to propose that will bring some changes to the offseason. According to NFL media, some of the changes that are being spoken about and are trying to be, worked out for at this point in the proposal stages is that it would completely eliminate the voluntary workouts, the spring workouts, and the OTAs as well in April and in May. In terms of, in favor of of a longer training camp, which would ramp up with the players not reporting until mid-June to early July. That was according to the informal proposal that was posted on all over social media by the NFLPA. So if you haven't seen it, that post by the NFL sources, I'm sure you guys can go find that anywhere on X or on Instagram and stuff like that. But that was the words that they used in favor of a longer training camp sort of ramp up period with the players not reporting until June and early July. So that's a pretty big change. There would be no OTAs that would start in May, and there would also not be no rookie minicamp as well. If everybody's reporting until July to June, that would be the biggest thing that I will touch on in just a few seconds. But also, there would be, like I mentioned, no technical OTAs, but it would mean a sort of OTA style of beginning of the offseason. So you would have no spring part of it. There would be no voluntary workouts or none of that. No conditioning, no working out part in the spring. Teams, players would all have off until June slash early July. which would be replaced by virtual meetings in the springtime, according to some of those changes that you see on your screen. So, you get rid of all of that, no OTAs, no minicamp. But once you get into June, you obviously don't want to jump into straight pads, straight hitting, and then just go 100% and risk a lot of people getting hurt. That's where the OTA sort of style of this beginning part of the offseason sort of comes in. You come in June, July, and you sort of have OTAs at that point, and with the whole working out, strength training, conditioning training, then you ramp it up probably in the beginning of July, towards the end of June potentially, and then you go straight into training camp, straight into the pads, and then you flow through that whole period of training camp, no break in between, and then it just continues on like it usually does into training camp, preseason, and then the regular season, instead of getting some people together in the spring, not everybody, not being in pads, just being in shirts and t-shirts, working out together. I mean, all these guys just probably work out in general, so you don't have to be there, but you get all these headlines that, oh, such and so isn't at OTAs, isn't at the voluntary workouts. Then they connect it to them not having a contract worked out at the moment. It all becomes a big headline. This new proposal to change that sort of gets rid of that and eliminates that, which is a point I pointed out to that I will get to in just a second on some of the positives of this new structure. And the NFL media continued on to say that a majority of NFL players support this proposal by the NFLPA, but the off-season changes technically are still part of the CBA that the NFLPA has with the NFL. So any deal, anything that would officially change would require a coming together and an agreement between the NFL and the NFLPA before any official changes are made to this off-season. The changes really just come from, you might be wondering, why do they want to change the offseason? It doesn't necessarily come up as a topic to want to change. In some people's minds it might be fine right now the way it is, but according to NFL sources, the changes stem from a desire to really reduce injuries and maximize the player recovery time from the previous season, which in all fairness does make sense. Some teams, if you're fortunate enough, you're playing into February, and then from February you have March, and then jumping straight back into April is really no time off for two teams, I guess, in all fairness, to just jump in right away if they want to. Again, it's all voluntary at that point, so there is that. But also, some teams, realistically, most teams don't make it past late December, early January. So even then, you still have most of January, February, March, and then April, which again, give or take, people will have different opinions on it. Is that enough time to really just get back into the swing of things? I think it's all right. When this came up as a topic, as a news article that I read, it did come as a bit of a surprise, if I'm being honest, just because, again, I haven't seen too many players complain about it. But according to the NFLPA, most players agree with this, and most people around the NFL are agreeing with it, that come with this change and the kind of issues that could come about with changing it like this could be no rookie minicamp and no OTAs. The OTAs don't really affect me too much. I don't feel too strongly about it in one instance, or two the other way on it as well. But rookie minicamp to me seems like a bigger deal than I think most people would give it credit for, just because I feel like the rookies need that extra leg up, need that a little bit of an earlier start to their NFL careers, because most of these guys know how the offseason works. They know what the routines are going to be. They know what sort of drills and what sort of things they're going to go through. The rookies don't really do that. They're just meeting everybody. So to make them come in at the same time as these veterans, I think it would be more of a shock and more of a slower process of learning for some of these rookies, and you might not get to see such young players make such a big impact because everything was just thrown at them all at once. They're still really meeting some of these guys as people off of the field, off of just playing in the NFL. They're meeting the coaches, they're meeting the players, they're really getting to know everybody's name. And to throw them in all together, I think that would be a mistake. I think the rookies need that extra period. That's the biggest thing for me. If they included a rookie minicamp, I think it would be all right. I don't think it would be such a big deal. But that's the biggest thing for me, especially for the undrafted free agents. Those are other guys that are just trying to prove themselves. They got a little bit of a chance there by being undrafted free agents. Then if you take that away and they're not allowed a rookie minicamp, then you're really taking away a big chance for some of these guys. And I have a comment here from Eric Rodriguez saying exactly, rookies are freaking rookies. Essentially throwing them into the lion's den and setting them up to fail is exactly what I'm trying to say. With undrafted free agents as well, I think really would hinder them, and you wouldn't get some of these Cinderella stories, I guess, some fun stories that you get to see in OTAs. Who's this training camp hero, who's really making a name for themselves. You don't really get to discover anybody that way if you take away, I think, the beginning part of this offseason. And also, I can understand wanting a longer break. Like I mentioned, it would go from 4 months essentially to 6 months, which again would seem fair because obviously playing in the NFL comes with a lot of sacrifices and a lot of pain on your body. So I can understand that as well. I don't really like the break in between either, between minicamp in early June and training camp when it starts in July. I think that's pretty unnecessary how it works. You sort of start to ramp it up in OTAs and in minicamp, and then you really stop, separate for like about a month and a half, and then you get back together straight into pads. I wasn't ever a real big fan of that. So I like that they're taking that away. No real issues with that. And it takes away, really all the headlines you get right now. Just today, T. Higgins and Jamar Chase don't show up to OTAs, but with this change, you're not going to get any of that. No one's going to make a big deal out of it. And it really gives these teams more of a period to work out some of these deals. Until June/July, you have an extended period to work out these contract extensions, work out any restructuring of deals. So that, I'm sure, is another reason why the NFL and the NFL owners would want to do this, giving them that extra break there to work out these things and not have all the media attention on them for why isn't T. Higgins here? Why isn't Jamar here? Why isn't Justin Jefferson here? It takes away all of that, which could make it a bit more boring for the media, but I'm sure a lot easier for the NFL. And just really, I could just become a fan of this. It doesn't really affect too many players, I would think, but the rookie thing, that's really what I'm stuck on. If they could add a rookie minicamp to these changes and just keep it maybe in late May, early May, and something like that, I think this change would be fine. I think most people would agree with it. So that's where I stand on it. Again, let me know what you guys think of it in the live chat box or in the comments section afterwards whenever you watch this video. Big changes potentially on the horizon for the NFL and the NFLPA proposing this, but we'll see where this ends up, potentially in the summer where a formal proposal could be coming towards the NFL. But we'll put a pin on that conversation. I'm sure I'll revisit it. And we're going to head to another break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about more international locations that the NFL is reportedly looking into. We have some in Italy, maybe Japan, Abu Dhabi in the Middle East. More on those stories and more on those locations when we return. You're listening to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast.